Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tempe City Council work study session. Item number one is call to order. Members of the public may attend the meeting virtually through Cisco WebEx by visiting tempe.gov/councilmeetinginfo for more information. Council meetings can also be watched in real time via Cox Cable Channel 11 and at tempe.gov/tempe11. Also, tonight's agenda has a number of items that the City Council must consider in order to conduct city business. Guidelines for conduct at council meetings are available on the table near the entrance for those in attendance for tonight's meeting. I will now read the protocol for ensuring the proper conduct of City Council meetings. Continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. We need to be able to hear everyone in this room. Behavior that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of any council meeting is not helpful and is not permitted. This includes behavior both inside and outside of the council chambers. Should individuals inside the council chambers become disruptive so that city business is not able to be conducted, I will first ask that the individuals allow city business to be completed. There will be time for public comment during the call to the audience portion of the meeting. If no cooperation, I will issue a verbal warning and let them know that continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. If still no cooperation, I will issue a second verbal warning and let them know that continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. If no cooperation, then I will ask security officers to remove only those individuals who are causing the disruption. Security personnel should not engage in any way but only to escort them out of the council chambers. If individuals refuse to leave, security personnel shall warn them that they are trespassing and that the next step will be arrest by a Tempe police officer. Tempe officers may have to arrest individuals if they refuse to leave. Charges for trespass and disorderly conduct may apply, as well as other charges. Should anyone be asked to be removed from the meeting, I will then recess the meeting. Which brings us to item number two, call to the audience. The City Council welcomes public comment at this time for the issue review session and committee of the whole items on this work study session agenda. There is a 3-minute time limit per speaker. Madam Clerk, are there any comment cards this evening?
No request to speak.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk, appreciate it. If there aren't any comment cards, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the City Council on any of the items this evening? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, I will close that portion of the meeting and I'll turn to item number 3, which are our issue review session items. First up, we have item 3A, Tempe Community Council Agency Review, Fiscal Year 2023-24, Human Services Funding Community Recommendations. Thank you so much. Welcome, and please introduce yourselves to the crowd here and to the audience watching at home.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Octavia Harris, Executive Director of Tempe Community Council. Presenting with me today is Nancy Blevins. She is the co-chair of the Community Impact Committee of Tempe Community Council. Along with Nancy, we have another co-chair, Jacqueline DeStrimps, who could not be here this evening, but we did want to acknowledge her for her work. As a reminder, the Community Impact Committee is the governing body of the agency review funding process. And I also want to note that Nancy is in her 4th year on the TCC board, and she is the incoming chair of the board.
Thank you, Octavia. Tempe Community Council has been privileged for the last 51 years to administer and manage the distribution of human services funds on behalf of the City of Tempe through a process known as agency review. The process is truly community-driven and much more than just a grant process. TCC mobilizes interested community members who work and or live in Tempe to bring to agency review the voice of the community. Many of those folks are sitting behind me tonight. TCC works with citizen volunteers who dedicate their valuable time over a 4-month period to reading and evaluating human services proposals, interviewing respective agencies, and making funding recommendations to the City Council. This process can be quite complex and time-consuming, but it's also eye-opening, unique, and rewarding for everyone involved. The citizen involvement in the Human Service Agency funding process not only removes the politics from the process, but it brings citizens together to become better informed about the struggles and strengths nonprofit agencies face to fund, create, and implement quality programs. TCC's mission of connecting those in need to those who care includes nonprofit organizations both inside and outside of the Tempe borders that persistently address the myriad of needs in our community and provide high-quality vital services. Still managing the effects of COVID on our community, nonprofit partner agencies have transformed the social service delivery to meet the changing needs. Many launched some new services or expanding existing services or changed how they operated and served their community, including everything from how they communicate and prioritize to how they fundraise and leverage technology. Many agencies are now trying to find new funding to maintain successful programs and services that were created and funded during the pandemic, because many of those initial funds will be or are ending. As you will see, there was an increase in the number of agencies applying for funding this year and a large increase in the funding requests made. This work that the agency review does directly supports the Tempe City Council Strategic Priority 3.10. So just to give you a reminder of what our process is, during the month of December, we have our applications due. And citizen review happens in February. Then we have our agency interviews in March. We found funding consensus in April, and the TCC board then approved what was recommended. And here we are in May, making a council presentation. And then the contracts will be implemented in the month of June. Then we will have quarterly reports starting in September, January, March, and June. And our site visits will begin in August, and then this process will start all over again. We had, as I mentioned, a lot of increases in participation this year. The agency initial requests, there were 68 programs represented by 56 separate agencies. We had wide community involvement this year, a total of 63 volunteers from the community, the TCC board, and finance committees, including 2 stellar ASU interns, and a lot of people from our community with a lot of lived experience. So, money. We had 875,000 plus in new agency requests, so agencies that were not known to us previously. And the returning agency requests were $2.173 million for a whopping total of $3,048,000. So that's a lot. So our funding available, these numbers might look familiar to you. From the general fund, we had 1.1 million. Together, Tempe water bill donations were 40,000. And then to remind you that total agency requests were 3 and some change million. And then our final volunteer recommendations, the volunteer lowered the recommended amount by almost $500,000 before we started in with the financial modeling. And so that gave us a difference between available funds and volunteer recommendations of 1.427 in money. So what that means is that we also are leveraging how the city has invested in nonprofits in other ways. For example, entering into partnerships to provide services at the Family Advocacy Center and the opening of the Envision Center later this year. It's going to provide more opportunities for nonprofit partners to offer services and programming. So when we went into this, our group, including a lot of the people behind me, had a challenge. It was to do the most good and stay on budget. So as you all will recall, in 2021, the Tempe Community Council Board of Directors hired Corona Insights, a Denver-based research and consulting firm, to conduct a comprehensive human services needs assessment. Corona was able to improve equity by targeting the survey results from low and moderate income households to measure the amount and variations of human service needs across the community. By focusing on citizens in this demographic, they were able to solicit survey responses from people who might be the most vulnerable and need services but are not yet accessing them. So from that, we identified 16 total areas of focus of priority, and these were the top 5: to improve access to mental health services, support children and youth, help residents pay mortgage, rent, or utilities, providing emergency shelter, and helping residents find homes that they can afford. We also in this found a couple of areas that we had not seen in the last community needs assessment. And so one of the, for example, we found supporting the formerly incarcerated, and then also supporting immigrants and foreign-born people. So during the course of the year, we've been seeking out nonprofits, and that was one of the many reasons why we saw an uptick in the number of agencies apply. Okay, so you heard me say earlier that mental health was one of the first priorities, and so we actually really committed to that this year, and we added a mental health and wellness performance measure to our application process. The mental health outcome was to describe how the proposed program addresses positive mental health, wellness, and or behavioral health outcomes, and how will these be measured? So what you see here at the bottom of the screen in the blue box is kind of our template, and there are 3 of these measures total in the application. So it's asking us for very measurable the outcomes, the number of people and or the percentage of participants, like families and youth, will change their direction. What will they do? And modify their knowledge, their attitude, condition, et cetera, of toward whatever their issue is that they're trying to work on: employment, housing, food security, et cetera. So everybody had to fill that out, and that was new this year. So this may look familiar. These are our priority populations. In no particular order, they are homeless individuals and families, children and youth, the working poor, persons with disabilities, older adults, sexual and domestic violence survivors. And of those, we put the funding categories as these 3: crisis, stability, and self-sufficiency. So giving all that, then our scoring methodology kicks in with our volunteers. Our application process and the review of that is worth 50%. The interview is worth 50% for a final score of 100%. So then, as I said, our volunteers had the challenge of doing the most good while staying on budget. So what they did was the volunteer reviewers, as I said, reduced some of the recommendations that they made for funding, and then they had a cut score. Anybody that scored below 78 would not be recommended for funding. And then there was a smoothing effect to kind of multiply that by 67% that was added to everybody. And so what happened was the above formula resulted in all programs receiving at least 50% of the amount that was recommended by the reviewers. And it ended up with 20 programs not being funded, but 48 that were. Of the 20 programs that did not, we had 1 agency withdraw from the process. We had 2 that were not recommended for funding at all, and then 17 did not score a 78 or better. So again, we had 48 programs that represented 40 agencies, and that includes 7 new agencies that were not funded last year. Here's how the funding breaks down. On the left-hand side, you can see it's by population, those 6 populations I mentioned: homelessness, working poor, children and youth, older adults, disabilities, and domestic violence survivors. And then you have them broken down by the category, and this is crisis, stability, and self-sufficiency. And you can tell by the breakdown of color that it was very diverse.
So we identified several process improvements that I'm pleased to report our dedicated Community Impact Committee were able to act on this year. So we mentioned earlier in the presentation, the mental health question was added in response to the community needs assessment that was completed in 2021. We were able to diversify the volunteer and agency demographics. We increased the number of agencies applying who serve underrepresented populations or agencies who are led by people of color, LGBTQ+ communities, and people with disabilities, and we were able to do that by 50%. We also increased the number of agencies that address reentry issues, and we diversified our volunteer base with 30 new volunteers and 31 returning, so we had a total of 61, and our minority representation, or people of color, was increased by 11%. We also improved our volunteer training to include lunch and learns with topics like an overview of human services, mental health overview across populations, and understanding of our community needs assessment. We also created an additional volunteer training for the interview process for agencies and invited volunteers to attend other free trainings such as trauma-informed care or to learn more about music therapy. We were able to convene a number of agency partners around mental health access through a series of what we call communities of practice. And these included nonprofit partners, City of Tempe staff from various departments, especially Community Health and Human Services, Office of Education. We also had school administrators, community volunteers, and community members at large. And we were able to really have conversations about the human services priority populations and practices. And we were also able to find in greater detail and establish an agreement of next steps and working collectively to identify and provide access to quality mental health and wellness for all. So we're looking at these community of practices as a place of a system of support for providers, as well as a place to network and advance the professional practice and collaboration. So looking forward to fiscal year 24-25, we're dedicated to continuous improvement process. And we're looking at our process and procedures that really guide this community-driven effort of agency review. So we're looking at improving and refining our contract performance outcomes and indicators, prioritizing to achieve collective impact. So we're going to continue to analyze our human services needs, continue to have our communities of practices, and set clearer strategies and priorities for our nonprofit community to help respond through the agency review funding process. We're also going to continue to refine and improve the volunteer training and recruitment process, and this will include ongoing educational opportunities. And we're also going to continue to focus on recruiting to better, to have a volunteer base that better represents the diversity of the community. And so as we embark on our evaluation process of our current agency review process to structure or overhaul our RFP process, the recruitment of agencies and services that best align with City of Tempe and human services strategies are going to be of utmost importance, with a focus on outcomes, of course. So finally, we want to once again acknowledge the agency review volunteers that we had. These are folks who live and or work in the Tempe community. We had a lot of great feedback from all of them around their experience with the process, and we take it very seriously, but we appreciate a great deal of their kindness and giving all of their time. Sometimes it can be an entire work day, so they're taking off work to help us. Our volunteers are really exceptional individuals, and they're bringing their lived experience and professional expertise along with their compassionate hearts. And so we really want to say thank you to all of our volunteers, including Nancy sitting next to me, for all of their continued support. And now we are happy to take questions.
Thank you so much. Great presentation. Any questions by council? Councilmember Chin? Or no? Just a comment. Okay. Oh. Okay, let me go to Councilmember Chin first, then I can go to Councilmember Hodge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I, as a former reviewer and chair of the process, I appreciate the work of the 63 volunteers, and I bet there were more than that also. But I really appreciate your efforts on the agency review. I know that it takes a lot of time and effort and energy, but it's definitely a worthy cause. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chin. Councilmember Hodge?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for taking me through the process. And this is my first time actually on council hearing the agency review and how the process went through. So thank you so much, Octavia, and everybody else who's worked on it. I know you guys do a phenomenal job. So I just wanted to say smooth sailing for me to understand the process now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Hodge. Councilmember Garland?
I also want to say thank you. I think it's incredible what the volunteers do. I've never walked through this process before, so I know that when I get off council, I am going to volunteer. So you're going to have me as one of the 63 volunteers someday, so I can't wait to do it.
That would be wonderful.
Write that down. Oh, there you go. I also want to say, when we look at the dollars that you get the 1.1 million from the city, and you get $40,000 from a year from the water bills. And I just want to say this to everybody who's listening in the city of Tempe, and if the ones who are not, please talk to your neighbor. If every single person who got a water bill, business, homeowner, paid or donated that $1 that's on your bill, that amount of money would go up to $480,000 a year that we could be putting into this program that serves so many people in our community and serves their needs. So you're going to hear from me this next year. I am going to be talking about this as much as possible. I'm going to be on my social media. I'm going to be at events, and I'm going to be pushing this because really it's $1. If we all gave that dollar, it's $480,000 instead of 40, and it would make a world of difference to people. So I just want to say I'm on board with y'all. We're going to be pushing this. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Vice Mayor Adams.
Yes, I just want to thank you for the excellent presentation. And also, I really like it that you named every individual that participated in this process and, volunteers, because that's the volunteers are the heart and soul of our community. And to have everyone listed, it's just, and it's quite an impressive list, by the way. So thank you for all the volunteers out there. But I really appreciate you pointing that out. And that's something that actually I would like to see more of with other folks. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Adams. Councilmember Keating.
I'm sure you know what I'm going to say. Thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you to all of our volunteers who participated in this process. Agency review is such a critical process to the city, and as you mentioned when you first started speaking today, it takes the politics out of it. And I think that's important that we protect and preserve this process as much as we possibly can moving forward. And as I mentioned last time you were up here, we'll see what we can do about getting you guys some more money for next year, because the budget for agency review hasn't increased in, to my knowledge, 20 years. Certainly the value of $1 has gone down in that 20 years. So anything we can do to make sure that you guys are well equipped to keep doing this valuable service, which I don't need to tell you is 100% a labor of love for this city. So we all really appreciate what you guys do up here. And I know that the people that are benefit from the services that we're able to fund, thanks to your process, really do too. So we really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Keating. I'll just go ahead and say what everyone else has said. Thank you so much. Great presentation and great work by everyone from Tempe Community Council and all the 63 volunteers that you referenced. And I can't say it any better than my colleagues. I just wanted to say thank you for all your work, and thank you for letting the public know about all the great things going on at TCC and agency review.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Next up, item 3B, Mayor's Youth Advisory Commission update and recommendations. All right, please come forward and introduce yourselves for those here in the audience and those watching at home.
Hello, City Council, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Adrian Cassio. I've had the pleasure and the privilege to be the advisor for MIAC for the last 5 years. We have two of our commissioners here. One of them is on her way. She had to finish an AP test, so she's coming directly from school. And I'm going to have the commissioners introduce themselves. They're going to be here to talk about annual updates, all the great things that MIAC has been doing this year. They're going to be talking about recommendations. All I have to say is our commissioners are much more intelligent, smarter, passionate, and knowledgeable than I was in high school. So we really hope that the recommendations that get brought up today can provide for hopefully further dialogue and collaboration amongst council and the departments here. So I'll have them introduce themselves. And do you want to handle the clicker? Okay.
Hello, my name is Shalay Clemens, and I am the chair of MIAC this year.
Hello, my name is Tamsin Hurlbut, and I am the project management chair of MIAC.
Thank you.
And then Rusha is on her way. She is the vice chair, but yeah, we can go ahead and get started without her, and then she can join when she gets here. All right. Yes. So just to begin, a quick history about MIAC. We were established in 1980 in response to diverse youth challenges, and we really just serve to elevate youth voices in the community and give youth the opportunity to contribute to issues that directly face them and affect them, and that they're passionate about. So that's our role.
Yeah, so we just kind of wanted to go through what we kind of did this year. So we went to the League of AZ Cities and Towns. I and Rucha got the opportunity to go to the National League of Cities, where I saw a lot of you. That was amazing this year. We had a successful fundraising project, and most notably, we added a youth component to the Unity Walk.
We've also had the opportunity to work with a lot of different offices in the city this year. We've had a representative from the Office of Sustainability at every single one of our meetings, helping with the Environmental Sustainability Subcommittee, which I am on and am very passionate about. So I've enjoyed that. The Human Relations Commission also gave us the opportunity to hold the Youth Engagement Fair that we'll touch more on later at the Unity Walk this year, which was really amazing. And I know Tamsin has worked directly with the HOPE team as well on the on House Committee's recommendations this year.
Yeah, we just kind of wanted to give you an overview of what we'll be going into. So our subcommittee topics this year are like an unhoused population subcommittee, because it's such a big issue, as the Tempe Community Action Agency was doing as well. Emotional and mental wellness, specifically for teens and youth, and then environmental sustainability.
We've also employed some new strategies this year. Traditionally, we've held our annual youth town hall, but we decided this year to take a bit more of an action-based approach and actually, try to get out into the community and work with these different offices because we felt like we'd be able to have a greater impact that way. So we had our youth engagement fair. We attended a superintendent student advisory council meeting where we actually got to have conversations with students directly and gather their input that way, still using our surveys, but just, more directly and having more of an action-based role in the community, which we really enjoyed.
Yeah, and I was going to kind of go into this because I helped kind of organize this. So we added a youth resource fair aspect to the Unity Walk, which was really cool. We had nonprofits, some led by other teens, like Souls to Souls, which is really cool. And we tabled for our subcommittees, and then we were able to do the Unity Walk as well. So it was great to have a MIAC presence there, and we wanted to shout out to the Human Relations Commission for like organizing that and helping us. Oh yeah, so straight into the unhoused population subcommittee. So we decided to make the unhoused population a subcommittee, as it has been a priority in the city as well, obviously all of you. I feel like one of the top priorities this year, but specifically youth homelessness has been our focus. So I don't know if you all know, but the most significant provider of youth shelter and services, Tumbleweed, went bankrupt in 2016. And kind of most of its services folded and have not really been replaced. So we just wanted to like kind of focus on that and bring it to y'all's attention. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so here are statistics from our surveys. We obviously could not survey every single teen in Tempe, like that would be impossible, but this is just kind of what we got as well. And then another, like during the 2020 annual point in time count, in Maricopa County, there were 530 young people experiencing homelessness. So it was like, is this a really big issue? Yeah, and so to address that, here we have some recommendations. A lot of them are from the Houston Action Plan and the City of Houston. They had a specific youth homelessness component, which I thought was really interesting, and they were able to reduce their homelessness population by 60% in 10 years, which is like amazing. So kind of the ones I wanted to focus on were to explore adding underage youth shelters and transitional housing. A recent study at ASU that was on the unhoused population found that though youth can definitely use already adult shelters, there's like exponential findings that they do a lot better if they are around other youth. So that is something we want to focus on. And then also the Tempe Community Council is already on this, but focus on groups like the LGBTQ plus community who are disproportionately affected by homelessness, which you guys are doing a great job of. I was glad to hear that.
Yes, Councilmember Garland, and I think someone may.
Oh, That's not Ruth.
Okay, I was looking in the back.
That
so
is a commissioner.
It is the commissioner. She's
I was
just
gonna
visiting.
say, I knew the same shirt, so I had to make sure, but Councilmember Garland.
What, on this slide that you have on here, can you explain reduced defensive architecture?
Yeah, definitely. So this was something that it wasn't really even on my radar. And then we ran a lot of surveys of youth in the community. They kind of brought this to my attention. So I think the way that it was explained to me is that defensive architecture is architecture, for example, a park bench where you put a metal divider in the middle so that a person can't sleep there for the night. And I think you could definitely see why there would be a role of that within the city. There obviously is a purpose, but we just wanted to add that one because there were so many young people who put that in their surveys because we have a place for them to kind of add anything else they would like to say. And there was a lot of that in our survey. So I just thought I would add it because it was something that was definitely on everyone's radar. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Next up is our Emotional and Mental Wellness Subcommittee. And this year we kind of faced some limitations because of some laws that are in place to kind of prevent us from surveying about mental health without parents' permission. So instead, we really focused on partnering with Tempe Union High School District because they had some mental health surveys that they were conducting. And so we kind of based our recommendations off of those results and had the opportunity to conference with them and discuss their results and kind of give feedback on the questions they asked and really get into depth in that whole process, which we really enjoyed. And yeah, so the recommendations that came of that, first is to maintain the number of Care 7 specialists, youth specialists serving Tempe Union High School District, and to also maybe expand those specialists into non-Tempe Union High School District schools. For example, Tamsin here goes to Tempe Prep, so just making sure that those opportunities are available to all Tempe Union students and really working within the schools to expand awareness of those specialists and their abilities. Here is Rusha.
Welcome. How was the test?
It went decent.
I'm sure it went more than decent. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then this Rusha was actually the one presenting mental health. So
Perfect timing. Look at that.
Yeah. Did you guys already go over it?
you can add anything if.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
Fine. Same stuff. Yeah.
And then last but definitely not least, we have the Environmental Sustainability and Justice Subcommittee. This year, our goal was really to understand the city's climate action plan that's already in place to make sure that our recommendations are productive and not, a little bit redundant. And then also to hear youth's direct stories and experiences with extreme heat to really get a good understanding of what they're going through in terms of climate. So you can see some testimonials here, but really all of our survey feedback was consistent with the two on the screen, just detailing their horrible experiences with extreme heat during the summer. And it was, of course, a range. Some students were just talking about how at soccer practice, they have to take a second to sit down, or some of them have even gotten heat stroke because of how extreme the heat they're dealing with is. And then there's also the students who don't have access to air conditioning, even when they enter their homes. And so extreme heat is really an issue that's constantly affecting them and their livelihoods and their quality of life, and is just something that's always on their mind. So all of this feedback kind of inspired, our strategies here. The first of which is to continue youth participation in the Sustainability Office. There's a lot of great programs that exist already that I personally participated in. And again, we've had the representative from that office at our meetings, and we found that to be really productive and just kind of being able to align our goals. Also, increasing aid to students and residents who are heat vulnerable by providing services such as these to just, kind of help relieve them of that heat, families who aren't able to themselves. Also, increasing the concentration of just greenery in general. You know, this was something a lot of students said is they want a greener Tempe, but then specifically using native or desert adapted plants to make sure that we're contributing to the decolonization process that I know Tempe prioritizes. And then lastly, improving access across Tempe to locally sourced food. One avenue of doing this could be creating community and school gardens. We've done that at McClintock this year, and it's been a process I've really enjoyed. And just, you know, making sure that students everywhere have access to fresh and locally sourced food. Non-processed food is really important for their health and also for just dealing with heat and with all of the consequences of it.
So these subtopics were chosen by MIAC for a reason. These topics deal with issues that adversely affect many youth across Tempe, and with these recommendations, MIAC hopes to better address the concerns of our peers and hopefully increase youth engagement in our community.
Lastly, we just wanted to thank all of you for your involvement in MIAC and the opportunity that we get every year to come and share these recommendations. It's really special to us and to the youth of Tempe. So lastly, we will take any questions.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Let me go ahead and start with Councilmember Garland.
I'm so impressed with you. I think it's incredible what MIAC is doing. And it was so great to spend time with Richard Tamsin when we were in DC, just having conversations and learning the passion that you have for really wanting to try to make a difference for your peers is really incredible. I just wish every school district had kids like you, because you guys are going to make a difference. You absolutely are. I just want to say that when you were talking about the homeless, in Tempe Elementary School District, they have 120 homeless students right now. So talking about the homeless, it's not just so much the homeless that are on the street, but yeah, it's the students. So it's amazing what you guys are doing. I just want to say thank you so much. And I love the partnership that you have with the council and with the mayor coming in and other organizations, other boards and commissions that you're working with. I think that's really smart. And if there's anything, I can do or we can do, we'd love to be able to step up and help you also. So thank you.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a really great point about the kids in the elementary school district. When I was talking to Jessica and Kim from the Hope team, they were saying that it's because it wasn't on their radar until so the Super Bowl priced out a lot of the families that were staying in hotels, and we had like 25 families that were on the streets because of that. So I think it's important. I mean, of course, there's not just kids that are actively in the parks and around. It's definitely kids that are just house insecure and living in a motel. So 100%.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Adams, then Councilmember Chin, then Councilmember Hodge.
Yes, thank you so much for all your volunteering and everything that you've done. I know that Brooke St. George is in the audience, and she used to be in the Mayor's Youth Advisory Commission. And that might be something, I know Councilmember Chin also, I believe, participated in it, correct? And I thought that it might be something that would be good to bring in past members when new members come in and just kind of have maybe a little mentoring program and brainstorm together with the past members and share your wisdom with one another. So just throwing that out there, but thank you so much for participating in it. It's a very, very important program. And I had the pleasure many years ago of serving on as a Tempe worker, serving on with the Youth Advisory Commission. So I really appreciate your efforts. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And I don't know if they mentioned it, but we do have an 8th grade mentoring program that we're going to implement next year. So I love that idea of bringing in old commissioners and bringing them in and having them help with our mentoring program. So we'll definitely consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Let me go to Councilmember Chin.
Old members? What old members? Brooke, what year did you participate? Well, mine, I'm going to tell you, mine was probably 41 years ago. I just did some math over here. Yeah. Old members. Can we find some other language? Right, seasoned. I just know I'm going to keep this seat warm for one of you. I hope you know that I know that the rest of council joins me, and I know our directors and leadership in the city appreciate your input. A long time ago, I was able to speak to the equity of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Commission as having the same status recognition as any of the other adult boards and commissions. In the city of Tempe, the youth voice is very important to us. Inclusion of your perspective is very helpful to all of us as we implement programs, services, and look at new innovative ways of doing things. So, your research, the way you're responding and presenting is very impressive. And Adrian, you're right, they are much smarter than I was when I was on council. So thank you. Thank you for your work. Old.
Thank you, Councilmember Chin. Councilmember Hodge.
Thank you. I want to say thank you so much. You guys know that I work with you on not one side, but on both sides, especially with being on Tempe Union and with City Council. And the work that you guys have done is just I'm extremely proud and honored to be able to work with you on such a good level, because throughout the year this year I've gotten to do multiple things with you guys over the year, and I extend out, like my other colleagues, anything that I can do or anything that I can help with, I would love to be a part of. Your voice, you know what? A lot of people say, well, we need to get you at the table. You've been at the table, you know what? And you have taken over that chair seat. So just hats off to all of you and all the work that you do. And Adrian, you know you're the man. So I yield my mic.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Hodge. Let me go to Councilmember Keating.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. As Councilmember Chin said, we're probably just holding these seats for you. You certainly, your passion just comes through. And, I was a lot different when I was your age. So the fact that you're here and you're so passionate about our city and you're giving so much of your time and effort to help us improve our city gives me, the youngest member of this body, yet still old, as Councilmember Chin points out. It'll happen to you too, I assure you that. It gives me a lot of hope for the future, right? That there are still young folks that care so much about these things that may seem kind of trivial and minutia that really are severely important. So I also loved how you guys talked about targeting LGBTQ young folks, because not only do we know that those are a vulnerable population, but let's be real, even being a young person is a vulnerable population, right? So these are people that are doubly at risk, in my opinion. So it sounds like you guys are doing some fantastic work, and I thank you for your service. And let me know when you guys are running for office, and I'll donate. I'll donate a little bit, but no, we really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Keating. Yeah, I was going to say very much the same thing again. I mean, you're all incredible young people. And the reality is I keep thinking back on my high school time and think what I was trying to do at that point. I was in student government, but I was also trying to, play in the minor leagues. And I was in no way, shape, or form as involved or as knowledgeable about things going on in my city and my community as all three of you sitting in front of me right now. The level and the depth of the knowledge you have, I mean, completely blows me away. And as a couple of other folks have already talked about, I am sure that all of us sitting up here are just keeping these seats warm for you when you get to be, in your 20s and have the ability to run for city council. This is the kind of thing that makes me very confident that obviously all of us at one point can retire and go do other things because we have such bright young people like yourselves sitting right in front of us. So I'm just so proud to have you here. So happy you've been part of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Commission, and just really appreciate the report. And I know the best is yet to come for each and every one of you. So I'm very excited and just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I also just wanted to quickly say I'm really grateful that our words and our work on this commission actually inspires action. I think that's really special because I feel like a lot of times youth being in similar roles to this can be performative and can just be so that people can say youth were involved in the project. And I don't feel like that is how this commission is run. I feel like our recommendations and our words here actually have an impact. And so I've really appreciated the ability to, the opportunities I've had on the commission these past 3 years. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just to add to that, I mean, when we went to the National League of Cities and we met a bunch of other advisory commissions, we're the ones who get to present in front of council. Tempe is special in that it actually takes our recommendations into consideration and we get to talk to you all. So it's 100% true that that is actually the reality of, the greater United States. We're like one of the ones who are actually making an impact in our community.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Hodge?
I just want to correct everybody on my council. They're not going to be sitting in our seats. They're going to be sitting in the president's seat, the governor's seat, and one of the Congress seats.
I concur. That's no, my seat too. Let's see here. All right, that brings us here to item number 3C, Tempe Tourism Update. All right. Hello, Craig. Hello, Michael.
Afternoon, Mayor and Council. What a couple presentations to follow, but building on the collaboration theme between the organization and the community. Craig Hayton, Community Services Director. I have the pleasure of introducing the Tempe City Council update for the Tempe Tourism Office. Myself and Vice Mayor Adams also have the privilege of serving on the Board of Directors for the Tempe Tourism Office. And as you're well aware, the city and the Tourism Office has had a decades-long collaborative relationship that really seeks to position Tempe and improve the quality of life for the community within Tempe by championing Tempe to visitors. And we see visitors as an important part of our community as we see those who live within Tempe and those who own and work within Tempe, own businesses as well. So the Tempe Tourism Office leads with passion and authenticity in each and every relationship that they cultivate, really looking to promote Tempe as an energetic, inspiring, and enterprising travel destination. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to Michael Martin, President and CEO of the Tempe Tourism Office.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about tourism today. I'm following a great group of kids. It's really hard to do this whenever you see that happening. In high school, I remember just trying to grow my mullet and listen to Depeche Mode. So this is pretty incredible. You remember that? Yes. So we have a great future ahead of us. So good for them. Yes, Gilbert. So to begin with, just for those in the audience who are not familiar with us, we're the Tempe Convention and Visitors Bureau. We were founded in 1988 as a 501c6 to promote the city of Tempe as a leisure and business destination, and of course to support our businesses within the community, hotels, restaurants, shops, retail, and other businesses that have visitors come through their door. Our annual budget is derived from the city of Tempe bed tax. It goes into the general fund, and then we receive a portion of that bed tax through our contract with the city of Tempe. We also receive funds through Prop 302, which is the Maricopa County tax that we apply for on an annual basis. And we have private funds through our advertising and cooperative marketing programs. We currently sit at 12 staff members, and we have 17 board of directors. Tonight, I'm going to review a few topics. First, our organizational goals. Second, our tourism economic impact study. The Tempe hotel industry status as it sits today. Marketing, sales, and communications programs for our staff, and our community partnerships. As part of our overall purpose and strategy, we want to, of course, align ourselves with the City of Tempe priorities. We see our priorities as the three that you see here: financial stability and vitality, quality of life, and strong community connections. We do this through our marketing efforts. Of course, we have paid advertising that we implement on an annual basis. We have our own digital assets, our social media, our website, and our e-newsletter distribution. We also have our sales and marketing efforts with sports planners and meeting planners. And we also support several events that come to the city every year and try to find new events that will come to the city to increase impact. This is the economic, on an annual basis, we conduct the survey through a company called Tourism Economics. And unfortunately, the 2022 study is being done right now, and it's not going to be available till June. So this is a snapshot of 2018 through 2021. And the reason I want to show this is that it shows 2019 as our peak year. Total visitation hit 4.2 million. We had about 9,700 jobs in Tempe related to tourism, and direct spending was at about 883 million. As you can see, the effect of COVID had a dramatic effect not only on Tempe, but of course on the United States, and tourism was one of the hardest hit areas. So we dropped down to 2.8 million visitors, for example. In 2022, I know these numbers will be much improved, even over 2021, and once the data is available, we'll be releasing that information next month. This information comes from a company called Smith Travel Research. We receive this information on a weekly and a monthly basis. This is calendar year information, January through December. So in 2019 through 2022, you can see the difference in numbers. So I want to point out that rooms in Tempe increased by about 800 rooms from 2019 to 2022. This is really important because of those 800 rooms, most of them were full service hotels. This does not include the Omni, which just opened, by the way. So what's important about full service hotels is that they bring the ability for us to bring groups in, have more citywides, and actually, I know this is not popular with people, but higher rates. The more higher rates that we have in our hotels, the more revenue obviously that comes back to the city. So to grow by 800 rooms in just 3 years is pretty incredible, but it's even more incredible that it was mainly full service. We now sit at about 7,170 rooms with the Omni now open. Total rooms sold, I apologize, that number got shifted a little bit. But in 2019, we had 1.6 million rooms sold in the city. In 2022, that increased to 1.7 million. And again, that has a lot to do with the fact that we have 800 new hotel rooms in our community. Jumping down to average daily rate, this is another really important number. This is, I believe, a direct result of full service hotels in Tempe. We went from $104 in 2021 to $137 as average daily rate. Again, reflective of full service in our city. And finally, revenue jumped from $186 million in 2019. Our hotel revenue this calendar year, 2022, jumped to $233 million. So things are definitely on the rise. And we believe that 2023 will actually exceed 2022. This is just a smattering of examples of some of the marketing and communications programs that we do. One of our videos, social media, an article that we have in Travel Zoo during the holiday season, an ad. This is a listing of some of the advertising placements that we do. So we work with TripAdvisor, Odyssey Radio, Connect, Pride Guides, which is LGBTQ+ focused, Travel Zoo, Weather.com, Pandora, and of course Expedia for our summer campaigns. This information is fiscal year, July through March. And so thus far through the year, through March, we had over 831,000 visits to our website. Social media followers exceeded 76,000. We have over 141,000 media engagements on social media, and our impressions are about almost 1.8 million on social media. And again, this is just through March, so that'll be increased by the end of the fiscal year, and our annual report will be released in August, so you'll have a complete update for all those numbers. Group meetings and sports. This is a special slide because I want to point out a couple of things. These are the tactics that we actually do. You see in the middle, advertising, familiarization tours, which we bring when we bring out meeting planners and sports rights holders to actually experience the destination in hopes that they book Tempe. Our legacy events like Rock and Roll Marathon and Ironman partnerships, that type of thing. But the group leads number on the top is really important because this is reflective, again, of the fact that we have more full-service hotels. This is a record number of leads that we've generated within our history. And what's important about this number is that it's also showing that group meetings is making a rebound post-COVID. So this is an indication that things are actually improving. I want to point out, too, that on a monthly basis, I provide mayor and council and city staff a monthly tourism report, and we provide these stats on a monthly basis. But it occurred to me when I did this that you might not understand, from our perspective, what a lead actually is, because so many different industries have different rules on what a lead looks like. Ours are not just simply a name, a contact, and an email. As a matter of fact, Matt Connolly, our director of sales, is here with me tonight. And he will tell you that we dig deep in finding out as much information as we can. So If a meeting planner, if we meet a meeting planner and they have a lead for us, we look for information such as the dates that they're looking at, the backup dates, what their room pickup will be, how many room nights do they need, how many people are going to be attending, and then flipping over to the actual meeting space. Do they need a general session? Do they need breakouts? What's the room setup? Do they need F&B? All of this type of information that we need so that we can compile it and then connect them with our hotels and meeting venues. So when you see the word leads, I want to make sure that you understand there's a lot of work that goes into just getting that lead out the door to our partners. And finally, I want to talk about community partnerships. So you're probably well aware of our Team Tempe group, which is the City of Tempe Communications and Economic Development Office, as well as the Downtown Tempe Authority, Tempe Chamber of Commerce, and the Tempe Tourism Office. These are just a few of the items that we've worked on this past year. The homeless solutions discussion as it relates to our businesses within the city, the Mill Avenue Restaurant Acceleration Program, which I'm happy to be a part of to provide input and feedback and suggestions, and the Tempe Business Roadshow, which we hosted just this past month. This was an opportunity for us to actually take our information to South Tempe, talk to business and community leaders in that part of the city, and talk about tourism, talk about the Tempe Refresh program, talk about any development that's happening in their own backyard, talk about homeless updates, things like that. So it was a really well-received event, and we're looking at doing more probably on a quarterly basis. I also want to point out that we do support other programs within the city. So for example, the DTA, we sponsor a portion of Fantasy of Lights in the garden that you see at 7th and Mill. Innings Fest, this is the first year that we actually did a co-op marketing program with Innings Fest. And so basically those co-op dollars are spent out of state to drive room nights to Tempe and interest in Innings Fest from out-of-state visitors. So this year is a baseline year for us. So next year we'll be able to see if we're able to move the needle. We also sponsored the Small Wonders Map for the City of Tempe, which features the small businesses within the community as part of Local Firsts programs. We hosted the National Veterans Wheelchair Games in July, which is a huge success, and we just won an award yesterday in Kansas City for that event. We obviously support the Rock and Roll Marathon and Ironman and work closely with Parks and Rec on those programs. We have a campaign obviously every year with spring training, and we were a sponsor of the Super Bowl host committee this year. And we also support Tempe Chamber of Commerce programs. Lastly, as part of our contribution to the nonprofit community, we want to make sure that we are providing support within the community beyond just our economic impact with our hospitality partners. So our staff now have quarterly volunteer programs. So we've worked with Feed Our Starving Children. We did a Keep Tempe Beautiful obsession. That photo is the DTA, the Chamber, and the Tourism Office doing one of those events just a couple months ago. I have to say that it's really rewarding to go out for an hour or two and do this. It's kind of cathartic in a way. So I encourage anybody in the community to get involved with Keep Tempe Beautiful. They do a great job. We also supported Mulligan's Manor this year, which is LGBTQ plus home in Tempe, through our annual luncheon. And then finally, the Tempe Community Action Agency and the Tempe Centers for Rehabilitation. We had access to 4 Super Bowl tickets because of our sponsorship of Super Bowl. So we donated 2 tickets to each of those agencies. Combined, they were able to raffle those tickets, and they had a combined total of over $23,000 for fundraising. So we're very happy to support them on that program. And with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Adams, then Councilor Burkini.
Yes, thank you. Excellent presentation from both of you. I just want to say, Michael, this is your first full year doing being the CEO, and you're doing a fantastic job. And you also have amazing staff that work for you, and you're bringing in really good people because I think you're a great boss. So keep up the great work on that. And I just, I really enjoy serving on this board. It's a good board. We bring in a lot of money. People get to see how great Tempe is from all over the world, actually. So I love it, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Adams. Councilor Burkini.
Yeah, I agree with what the Vice Mayor had to say there. I think you guys have done an excellent job selling the city, and so much is good is happening in Tempe right now. And post-COVID, the city's only getting better and stronger, and that's largely thanks to the effort that you put in at the Tempe Tourism Office. I do think we're going to have more stuff to attract people to our city pretty shortly.
Yeah.
And I know you guys will do great work in that reality as well. I'll say there's one thing, some of the CFO of my day job's name is Michael Martin as well. So whenever you email me, I always get all scared for a second.
Oh.
And then I'm like, oh, wait, it's the other Michael Martin. So maybe we can change your name to like
Miguel.
Mitchell or I don't know.
I have all my life I've had that issue.
Well,
Too
you
many
guys,
Michael
you guys are
Martins.
doing a great job. So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Keating. Councilmember Garland.
I love what you do. Thank you so much for the presentation. I love your monthly reports, so thank you so much for sending those, because I do read them, and it is great to see that, so thank you so much. I love the fact that you work with the Tempe Chamber and the DTA, and the three of you guys are three awesome groups that work together to really make a difference in Tempe, so thank you so much for doing that. And I do think that Business Roadshow was a blast. That room was packed.
Yeah, it was
And
great.
if you can get that same result in other parts of the city, that would just be amazing. It was great to be a part of that, and you guys did a wonderful job.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for participating in that.
Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Anyone else, council? Comments or questions?
Well,
Councilmember Hodge?
okay, I guess I got to echo everybody else. You did a phenomenal job. I would have never known it was your first year if if they didn't tell me, because you've done such a great job with what you're doing right now. And I also agree with Councilmember Garland. I enjoyed the road show and employees. I actually have done 2 tours that I set up from in that room. So, I mean, I think it's going to be phenomenal when it hits all the parts of our city. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank
And
you.
I can't wait to see what the next year is going to bring in.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Once again, a great job. Wonderful. Thank you so much for everything. And so happy to have you at the helm, Michael. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you very
Craig,
much.
for everything. All right. Next up, item 3D. Jared was ready. Before I even got it out of my mouth, he was already walking up to the table. So 3D, Tempe Fiber, bridging the digital divide.
Absolutely. I'm excited today, and I also wanted to raise this up, if I could, a little bit.
I think you are the first person who's ever done that. That's actually pretty impressive. But I'm glad to see that it works.
It works. And for those that don't know, of course, I'm the IT director here at City of Tempe. So I did test it before coming in. Classic IT person just coming in and testing all the stuff.
That's true, Mayor. When I got down here at 3:30, he was at that podium.
Yeah, just up and down.
This is the man who's prepared.
I like it.
So good afternoon, of course, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. This is a really exciting item today that I bring before you all. In February, 3 months into starting the position, I sent a memo to all of you outlining City of Tempe's intent to review how to bring fiber to the city. And, that's an area that's near and dear to my heart, as will come clear in the presentation. But this presentation, of course, is just informational in nature. It's to let, of course, the public know, and you all know that City of Tempe intends to continue to pursue bringing fiber to Tempe. Of course, part of this presentation will discuss our intent to go out to private industry through a request for information to be able to gain more insight onto how we could do that. On this first slide here, of course, bringing fiber to the city of Tempe would be transformational. I put on that first slide Tempe Fiber because a fiber initiative always brings benefit across all the different performance measures at the city. And, it would benefit, of course, the city, our residents, any of our governmental partners and other organizations as well. So talking about some of our partners, and I need to apologize to Councilmember Hodge. I did meet with Tempe Union, but they did not make the slide. So my apologies, Councilmember Hodge. I have met with partners across the region. They're very excited for a municipal-owned fiber model. They had a lot of excitement. Of course, they offered their support. They said, hey, we'll review the RFP. Even some said, in addition to City of Tempe's infrastructure, we'll make our infrastructure available for this, and we'll provide additional funding. So they were very excited by this opportunity. So, getting down to it, what is it? What is, it's a long word. It's kind of like kind of out of Mary Poppins a little bit. And what I mean by that, it's municipally owned, open access internet service. And it basically breaks down into three kind of simple areas. Whenever you have internet service, you have someone that owns the infrastructure, you have someone that manages the infrastructure, and then you have someone who provides service. That's across the board. Whether it's private industry or not, it's always the same way. So Tempe Fiber, in this model, City of Tempe would own the fiber and conduit, under city streets. We would contract out for the management of that network, and then we would open up access to partners and private industry to allow more connectivity to our residents and be able to give them significantly and drastically improved access. So just want to, in some more question period, I might return to the slide just to say, what is Tempe actually doing? We would own that infrastructure, and we would construct that infrastructure with private industry. We would contract out with private industry to manage and have that open access model as well to increase access. So next slide here. So one of the things I was told is when you come to city council, make sure that you have everything memorized, make sure that you don't read anything. And I'm going to do something a little bit different there, and that is, I have a really big stack of papers here. This is 10 years of fiber optic and smart grid infrastructure by Hamilton County, Tennessee. And that probably doesn't ring a bell for most of you all. But basically, the people that are the premier in offering municipal service are almost all in Tennessee. They were kind of the first at it about 10 years ago. And the slide says, why are we doing this? And I just want to jump to the conclusion. My mom told me not to jump to conclusions, but here I'm doing it. I'm just going to read from this very briefly, just 2 sentences. So it says, after 5 years of fiber infrastructure resulted in up to 5,200 new jobs and 1.3 billion in economic benefit. And then at 10 years, so at the 10-year mark, it resulted in 9,500 jobs and 2.69 billion in economic benefit. So I'm going to take this big paper and set it aside, and I can send you all a copy as well. There's a lot of detail here, but I just wanted to jump to the conclusion at the end there. That's one of the major reasons of why we would build this infrastructure for the city of Tempe, in the city of Tempe. If the city were to take this step, and again, we're at the RFI stage, we're still investigating, we haven't come to any conclusions, but if the city were to take this step, we would be the first in Arizona. It would be designed and built to be the fastest in Arizona and one of the fastest in the country. But also, it would be one of the top 5 largest municipal networks in the nation. What I mean by that is municipally owned, privately operated. That model, there's not a ton of people do it, probably about 300 cities in the nation, but we would be within the top 5. If it was done today, we would be second. But between now and construction, there might be some differences there. So I kind of fudged a little bit and just put the top 5. So there's a few other slides here about why. There's about 3 other slides that discuss why, and I'm just going to briefly go through them. The first reason why is when we do our community services or surveys on an annual basis, there's about 25% or so, it's actually 27% of respondents that say they're unhappy with the internet. They either say they're dissatisfied or very dissatisfied with their internet service. And the number one reason that they have in the city of Tempe is they just don't feel like there's enough offerings. There's not enough there for them to be able to move to and get to what they want. So I just want to focus on one community within Tempe, what this practically means for the city of Tempe. So a recent study was done by ASU on digital inclusion, healing the digital divide. It should be published this next month, but I've been over the last 6 months that I've been here in ongoing discussions with this group. So there's a community within Tempe of 300 households that they do not have access to reliable internet service. What that means, we're not talking about high-speed internet service, I'm talking about reliable internet service. That means they use radio networks, that means they use satellite networks, that means they don't have access to their basic needs as far as internet goes. When they have a student in their home, one of those 300 households, they have to go over to the community center and they have one PC there. I was part of a large family. There's 7 kids in my family. we were always fighting over that family PC. But this is 300 households. It's not one household. So it's a very difficult situation for that community. And this is why we would do a Tempe fiber. It means that students would have access to high-speed internet for their class or any internet. They don't even have reliable internet, let alone high speed. We could guarantee that access. The same is said of their parents. Their parents, if their children get sick or they get hurt, they can't access telehealth in their home. They have to go to the community center or they have to go to a library. I mean, it's great that we have libraries. It's great that we have access, but having that close at hand to be able to access that is critical. Jobs, educational training, the list goes on. One thing that I wanted to, pivoting a little bit, assure those that are listening, one of the feedback I've gotten from the business community and from residential community is, Jared, this is all well and good, but don't mess up our roads, right? Pavement quality is huge in the city of Tempe. We want to make sure that our residents have great pavement quality. And so that's almost the number one thing I hear, especially from the business community. I've heard some horror stories, I used to be in this place and they shut down the whole city to be able to do this trenching, and I've heard from communities that are around us. There are other communities that are pursuing fiber internet in a different way and they do trenching and it's a bit disruptive. I want to, of course, reassure the public and City Council, our RFI and RFP, we will require a few things. Number one, that businesses that respond use our city infrastructure. You all may not know, but about 10% of our cities and roadways, and very roughly speaking, I've kind of glanced at a map, is already constructed with conduit and cable under the ground today. We will have a 10% reach already. So there's no reason to dig up the road again. Let's use that infrastructure already. We had that partnership slide when I talked about, hey, we might be able to use partners infrastructure. Well, how much better is it if ASU, state, county, ADOT, if they say, hey, and you can use our infrastructure? That would increase the amount of reach we'd have without any additional construction. Beyond that, we would also require that any respondent would do tunneling and boring and not trenching or micro-trenching. Trenching is when you get that really big, ugly gap. There's not, I'm not going to say that the traditional telecoms are using trenching. They're more using a smaller thing called micro-trenching, but it still is disruptive. So we would use that tunneling and boring instead of trenching or micro-trenching. Going on to economic development, there's three ways where this would help economic development. I briefly chatted about what is happening in Tennessee, but number one is this would offer an additional avenue for city revenue. Of course, as people get access, those that don't have it now, we would be able to provide that service and get additional revenue. Of course, when you have the fastest and most reliable internet in the state and you're building for that, that is going to cause people to want to stay here that are already here or come here and bring their businesses here. So that's, of course, an economic driver as well. Hospitals that currently aren't doing telehealth or radiology sort of components to their work would be able to with a faster internet and access speed. And of course, this is a bit on the construction side, which isn't my forte, but if you look at the screen, you can see this weird crisscross. It looks like a Bermuda Triangle or something. And this is the city of Tempe. It's our radio network for our emergency services and utilities. When you have a building that comes before you and say, hey, we want above 7 floors, we hit kind of what I call Tempe's other glass ceiling, which is when you go above 100 feet, we have these radio networks, and the building developer always has to check with the city, am I going to cross through one of these? And if they do, they have to do 100,000, 200,000, 400,000 worth of improvements on a building in order for it to make its way through the process. So we are being held back today by not having this fiber today. And what would occur is as we have this fiber network, what we already do is we put these communication lines underground. And so they're no longer going over the air, and that means that we're able to enable this development without additional cost to developers, which of course is beneficial to them. Finally, I wanted to mention, this is the last kind of benefit slide. I wanted to mention briefly smart city initiatives. And what I mean by this is as we are developing innovations across the city, as we have, for example, I've been asked even recently, how do we stand up a real-time intelligence center with the PD? How do we offer free Wi-Fi in the parks or do initial safety monitoring? How do we monitor climate change and conservation today? And the first thing that I have to respond to anyone asking those questions is, how do we get the information from that traffic light to here, or from the park to here, from any location to any other location in the city? When you have Tempe Fiber in place, it drastically reduces the cost of any of those additional initiatives that the city would want to put in place. So it reduces by about half. It may sound strange, but the highest cost of a Tempe Fiber or any of these initiatives is actually getting the plastic in the ground. It's not even technology. It's digging up and putting the pipe in the ground that then will carry some of the technology. So that's the highest cost. It's about half of ongoing or initial startup costs for any initiative. So that's where this initiative would help any of our smart city projects going forward. So I want to briefly have a few slides here to round out. So I want to discuss our next step, which is a request for information. You know, there's a few things that that we would like additional information on before pursuing a request for proposal, which would be the next step. And that is, we need more accurate information on how much the cost will be, what the timeline will be, and what the scope of effort will be. You know, there's questions when I talk to ASU or, you know, folks that do this all the time, they say, oh, where is your, you know, core switches and technology going to be? And I say, I don't know. I need some additional information. Or someone says, well, what to the dollar amount is the exact cost of this going to be? And in my mind, and, you know, for the benefit of the public, they deserve to know exactly what their costs are going to be before engaging in any sort of construction, any sort of procurement. And so that's what this next step would be. You know, talking about cost and funding, again, there's no obligation or necessity for City Council to take any, you know, any decisions as far as how these things will get paid for. In the long term, these initiatives get paid for by subscriber fees. That's the setup. In the short term, for construction costs or ongoing operational costs during the first few years, that's what we will find out as we receive back information from the RFI. And I will come back to City Council once that is complete before pursuing an RFP. Last slide here is just a high-level schedule. So this year, we'll be working on RFI, figuring out the funding, figuring out what the next steps are. Next year, early next year, we would be issuing an RFP. If all things go well, construction would begin in spring of 2025. That is my last slide, and just want to open up to any questions for Mayor and City Council. And I'll lower this while you ask questions, just for the next person.
Sounds good. I'll start with Vice Mayor Adams and go to Councilmember Keating.
Yes, I really appreciate that you're taking in transportation on our streets into consideration. And Shelley probably knows what I'm going to say, but if we can coordinate with, before we repave a road and then dig it back up, if we can coordinate IT and transportation before and put it in and then pave the road. Just makes a lot of sense. And I've seen that over the years that doesn't always happen, and it makes me a little crazy. Yes. So anyway, if we could do that, and I just really appreciate that you're thinking about that. It's very, very good job, Jared. Also, you know, we are the home to ASU, Go Devils, and I think it would be really helpful for our community to be completely connected, given we're a university city. I like it that we'd be first in the state, because I like coming in first. And so that would be really awesome. And I do appreciate you recognizing that it is an economic generator. And so it's a lot of money that can benefit our businesses. And I'd like that you're doing an RFI first, just to see what we have as far as money out there, and what the project would entail, and really doing a lot of research before we move forward to make sure we have all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed. So excellent presentation. I believe this is your first one, maybe, up here, so you did a great job. Followed Robert's Rules of Order very well. And I just appreciate, and welcome to the city of Tempe. Good job.
Good. Thank you, Vice Mayor Adams. We go to Councilmember Keating.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So I like the idea in concept, right? Like, I think it does make a lot of sense. It is something that I do, like the Vice Mayor said, would like to lead on this issue. Um, that said, this is something that I looked at with an old colleague when I first took office all those 7 years ago, and the cost was astronomical.
Absolutely.
So I do think that information is important to get, because ultimately it wasn't even remotely feasible when we looked at it then. Again, that was a long time ago, unfortunately. Um, so that's certainly something I want to take a look at, definitely. Um, you did mention working with some of the existing businesses that already provide these services too. Maybe some sort of partnership could help bring that cost down. Google Fiber wanted to come to Tempe for a while, and they actually were going to for a while, and I forget why they didn't. I forgot why that happened, but certainly that's something we can look at as well. I'm not saying like I'm against this. Like, I think if we can make it pencil, I think it'd be fantastic. But I'm trying to curb my enthusiasm for it, only because I've been down this whole rabbit hole before. But I really appreciate you coming to give us this presentation, and certainly, let's bring us some more information, and we can go from there. But I think creative ways to keep costs down would make it more likely to move this project forward. So I would say just kind of think out of the box. And again, maybe the prices have changed since 7 years ago, but just definitely collect some more information for us. And it certainly is a fascinating thought exercise right now, and I look forward to seeing what you bring back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Keating. Councilmember Garland.
That was a fascinating presentation. Really learned a lot, so I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I liked what you said about the equity. I'm thinking about equity. That's the thing that really gets to me with that story that you were just telling about 300 homes in a neighborhood. I'm just thinking in my head, I can think of a number of neighborhoods that probably don't have this access. So, really in the city of Tempe, we want to be equitable across the board, and this is one way that we could be able to do that. So that's one of the things that I like about this. I also like the idea of another choice, a possible other choice of internet in the community. I live in the same neighborhood as Vice Mayor Adams, and we have one option over there, and it is not always good. And yeah, it's hard. We want to work from home, but it's just awful. But anyway, so just having another choice and the equitable part I think is really great. I'm glad you're going to get some information and bring it back to us. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Councilmember Chin.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. As I was reading through it previously, top of mind for me is the digital divide, and thank you for addressing that. That is a challenge that many organizations and communities face when we're trying to be fully inclusive and fully accessible. And I think this would help us reach our residents, but also as another benefit to this, I think as a smart city, I think many of the departments would benefit because we would be able to modernize and update some of the infrastructure that we have wanted to do for many years. And I think this would give us the access and the data and just be able to roll it out across the city. The other item that stands out for me is reliable access for emergency services. As we grow and as technology demands increase by each one of us having at least one phone in the room, right? Mm-hmm. The drain on that is multiplied. So I really like the access for our emergency services. So I think it's a great idea, and I remain hopeful. And I think Councilmember Keating brings up a good point about cost, but I think technology moves very, very quickly, and I'm hopeful that we have access and that we can find more economical ways to approach this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Thank you, Councilmember Chin. Yeah, Councilmember Keating.
To Councilmember Chin's point, and I just thought of this, I think maybe we could also look at satellite providers as well. I mean, I know we can't launch our own satellites, right? But we can have, not yet, not yet.
Or can we?
Yeah. But some sort of, partnership there, because I do like the idea of being able to provide our residents with reliable, cheaper internet options than they have currently available, because, I also only have one option available to me. So just because technology changes quickly. So, thank you.
Hello?
Councilmember Hodge.
Okay, well, first off, I forgive you for forgetting Tempe Union. All right. I did. I remembered all that presentation. I just remembered. Oh yeah, I will make sure to tell him I forgive him for not forgetting Tempe Union in the chart. Also, I just think I love the concept, and I also love the fact that we're looking at the fact that we have people in our city that can't afford, that we're looking at pricing and how we look at economical levels. So I just thank you, and I'm very hopeful that this can go through. And like Councilmember Keating, I was thinking about satellite too. So I hope that's something we can look forward to. I guess I live in a part of the city that has more than one option, but it's still absolutely horrible, even with the two options I have. So thank you so much for looking into it.
Thank you, Councilmember Hodge. So, look, I love the idea, and I definitely want to make sure that we are, as Councilmember Keating talked about, mindful of costs. But one of the things I was thinking about, and this is either going to be very interesting or Tom Dunsing's going to run up here and throw me to the ground. But one of the things I keep thinking of is in terms of talking about going out for a bond election in November of 2024, and some of the things that we could build into that program. One of the things, now granted, I'm glad we are doing the RFI first just to get a better sense as to how much this would cost, what the time frame for implementation might be. But I keep thinking about things like fiber. I mean, I think this is really critical when it comes to providing our residents with faster, more reliable providers. I mean, I hear this all the time, and I see it on social media, as I'm sure all the members of council have talked about, that many times I have one provider in my area, and frankly, the provider isn't that great, and it's unreliable, and I would love choices, and I would love for the city to do something like this. So I do think that this is critically important to the business community. It's critically important to our residential community. But I also think about all of the big things that we could do. I mean, fiber, and this is sort of speaking more to the bond hole. I mean, people talk about affordable housing needs. People talk about a need to really make a huge investment in historic preservation. We talk about someone talked about public safety and how this benefits, our fire and medical rescue department and our police department. From my perspective, this is sort of a time to sort of, to go big. And when you talk about things that really are critically important when it comes to infrastructure, we all really believe in the Refresh Tempe program and fixing up our parks and our pavement quality and our alleys and all these other things. From my perspective, these are sort of bread and butter issues that our residents truly care about. They want us to be innovative. They want us to be first on many of these things. And I think that looking towards that November 2024 bond program, I think this is the kind of thing, depending on what you find when you go out for the RFI, that we could build into that program, because it might be costly, but I think it will pay tremendous dividends on behalf of the city of Tempe to give our residents additional options, but also to help our business community and even the folks here in this office compete even more. So this is the kind of thing that I think is really, it fits who we are as a community, and it's something that I really would like to push forward with. I know you have to get some of the information back first, but I think this completely is in line with who we are as a city and where we want to go.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council.
Thank you, Chair. And Tom didn't come up here to get me, so I feel good. Thank you, Tom. All right, next up here, we're going to go to item 3E, city-initiated upzoning process. Welcome, Ryan LeVake and Maria Lochner.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Ryan LeVake, Deputy Director in Community Development Planning Division.
Maria Lochner, Deputy Director for Economic Development.
So we're here back with you to discuss the resolution that was adopted for RO 22.12, which is the city-initiated upzoning process. We'll go over its utilization and then get some guidance from our City Council on this matter. This item closely aligns to our City Council priority for housing inventory and looking at achieving housing inventory ratios related to affordable workforce and market rate housing. The resolution for city-initiated upzoning process basically allowed city staff with the authorization from a property owner to seek redevelopment or rezoning of the property to enhance an area that might be in need of distress or have opportunities for additional residential in a designated area. We worked with the community in finding solutions to bring this forward. The resolution was a way to waive the requirement for simultaneous processing of a development plan review, usually tied with the actual project or PAD, and then be able to process a zoning map amendment and even the general plan to seek the vision of what that site could be, the future density projection, without the plans or proposals for an actual project. The fees were waived for the zoning map amendment and the general plan amendment. The city initiated the process on behalf of the property owner, so we worked with economic development as an authorized agent for the property owner. And then this allowed then the opportunity for the future of the site to be potentially purchased or acquired by a future developer that was interested in doing an actual project at the site. And then that future project will come back, formalize another hearing process, get further public input, process a PAD and a development plan.
Whoa. Sorry, someone sent me a message.
And then require another neighborhood meeting for actual input on the project. Some of the established limitations for the resolution, the upzoning process was not available to historic designated properties or properties that are historic eligible on the National Register list. And we required a one-year review after the 22 calendar, and that's why we're here today to discuss this item. We wanted to go over you with the projects that we've used so far for the city-initiated upzoning program. First one we had was the Ramada Inn over on North Scottsdale Road. This really was kind of community-driven interest, working with the property owner and realizing that there was an opportunity to revision, redevelop the site into some future residential project. It's currently a motel. So we rezoned the property from R4 to ME4 zoning district with a general plan density of up to 65 dwelling units per acre. Got a lot of opportunity to engage the community in there. There was some mixed opinions about the thoughts and ideas of what this could actually be, but ultimately we got a good support for the community members that wanted to see change in this area along Scottsdale Road. So this is some pictures of the sites, and we had processed and done some zoning map notifications, held neighborhood meetings, and got the community involved in the process. There's an opportunity. The applicant is interested in doing some major remodeling or enhancements of the site, so we hope there's going to be an opportunity for a future project of residential, but we haven't seen anything currently at this time. The other site, which is a city-owned property, the city initiated the upzoning process for Apache Central, which consisted of 3 parcels, 2 of them currently used as parking rides, and the other recently acquired shopping center at the
former Food City.
Former Food City, that's right. This rezoning process included a general plan map amendment and rezoning as well. We got some interest in the properties, neighborhoods got involved, and as we were preparing and rezoning this process, that's when economic development initiated the RFP process. And that is wrapping up or has closed at this time.
It has closed, and we're happy to report there were 7 proposals received.
All right. So there'll be some opportunity to review those and then initiate that process back to City Council. Another project we utilized the upzoning process with was a little bit more of a hybrid approach. The city issued RFP process for the Tempe Entertainment District. The one component we only used for that was the decoupling of the development plan review, the design review of the process, and allowed the applicants to proceed with the zoning, PAD, and general plan map amendments that are currently in review and subject to the referendum process that'll be occurring next week. If the project is approved, then this project will be required to come back and do design reviews of each building project that comes back for the site. The other city-initiated upzoning process was another RFP for La Victoria Commons. So this was a Newtown Copa Health project site. Responded to affordable housing needs for the site along Apache Boulevard. This project, again, with the help of the developer, had processed the conceptual designs, justification, the zoning, and general plan, PAD, map amendments for the site, and is now coming back to process the design review to get a little more specific details on this. The significant one to this project was this afforded them quicker time frame to prepare and get the zoning entitlement so they could meet the LIHTC deadline requirements, which were by April 1st. Mm-hmm. So we're here for you tonight to get some guidance from City Council. We can either look at maintaining current use of the resolution, terminate the resolution, or look at limited use when directed by council. That would also look at adopting a portion of the requirement parts for decoupling the development plan review. We saw that there was an opportunity that if on a case-by-case basis, we could still use the upzoning process, but then incorporate in the code a codification of the requirement that we could use this decoupling process for specific initiated projects that either are for RFP, RFQ projects or for incentivizing affordable housing projects. And we hope to get some feedback from council on this.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Adams?
I'm ready to provide feedback. I'm in favor of the upzoning as long as the neighborhoods are included in the process and their needs are listened to. And I know that you guys are already doing that, so I really appreciate it. But I just want that to continue and get our neighborhoods involved or continue to have them involved. And I really like it that we're going to do the affordable housing on Apache. That's exciting. And just this whole presentation was excellent as far as how it works. What you gave great examples of where you were doing it, and so I like that a lot. And so keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Adams. Anyone else? Comments? Councilmember Garland?
I would say that if what you're looking for is to support one of these three, I think that you've proven by the slides that you were showing and the work that we've already done that maintaining the current use seems like the right thing to do.
Sounds good. Thank you. Anyone? Councilmember Keating?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I agree with Councilmember Garland. Don't fix what ain't broke, right? You guys are doing good work with it, so I don't think there's a need to reevaluate it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I would agree. Same thing. I say it's been very successful so far, and love what you're doing with it. And I feel confident, given the neighborhood input, the staff direction, also having the Development Review Commission have a chance to look over all these things. I think there are enough checks and balances to ensure that it's really being used properly and being used judiciously. So I would say go forward as well.
Thank
you.
you.
Great. Thank you. All right, next up, we're going to go to, there is no item number 4 here, so we'll go to item number 5, which is Committee of the Whole. There are no items ready for City Council direction or status updates this evening. Council members, I look to you for the council committees here, 5B1, 5B2, and 5B3, to see if there are any updates. Let me see Councilmember Garland over here.
I just have an update that our next Human Services and Community Safety meeting will be Friday, June 2nd. And then the next one after that will be Wednesday, June 28th. Just wanted to give that update.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Garland. Vice Mayor Adams?
Yes, I just wanted to give an update that our next meeting is on the 24th of May at 3 p.m. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so
That
much.
would be the Sustainability and Economic Vitality.
It's a good thing you're on the committee with me.
Right. It's a co-effort.
Yeah, we read each other's minds. It's kind of scary. Thank you, Councilmember Chin.
All right, excellent. Anything else?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Keating?
Councilmember Hodge, do you want to announce our next meeting, or shall I?
You shall.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. The next Workforce Readiness and Livable Communities meeting will be on June 26th we moved the time to noon, didn't we, Annie? Moved it to noon, so we'll see you then. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right, that concludes that portion of the agenda. The next item on the agenda is future agenda items. Council members may request that an agenda item be added to a future issue review session, and in accordance with the open meeting law, there should be no discussion on the item other than to clarify the request. Vice Mayor Adams?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 items to add, and they might be a little bit connected, but I'm seeing a lot of scooters down on the sidewalks, especially downtown, and it's dangerous to our pedestrians, but it's also not fair to our physically challenged folks. So I really want us to get on that sooner than later. I think we were going to have a presentation in August. I don't want to wait till August. I want to have that moved up sooner, just because of the danger it is having on both our pedestrians, but also our businesses. It looks terrible when you have to walk over scooters to try to get into our businesses. So whatever you can do to work on that. And then the second one is along the lake, I've gotten some concerns about that it's on the lake when you're riding your bicycle or walking around the lake, that it's not divided into somebody walking and somebody bicycling. And I've had people that have almost gotten, that are physically challenged, that have almost gotten wiped out by the bikes. And so I think that would be good to divide that up. Shelley, this is obviously addressed to you, but if we could divide it up so one side of the concrete or the bike lane is a bike lane and the other half is a walking path. So I would appreciate that. I think it just would, I know a lot of California cities have those and they're very effective. So I would just appreciate us moving that forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so a couple of things here that Vice Mayor Adams talked about. So there was a discussion she talked about already being planned on scooters, perhaps in the fall, I guess, maybe perhaps in August or so. I'm just thinking maybe, Mr. City Manager and Madam Clerk, maybe I could work with you and kind of see when that item was scheduled for to see if there is any way to move that item up.
The only item I have scheduled for our August work study session is August 17th. It's Downtown Tempe Authority / Tempe Joint Curb Management Study.
Okay. So Len, I will thank you very much. Let me go to Mr. City Manager. If this is not already scheduled, can we schedule this then for a future issue review session?
Yes, we've had a number of these when, the bike share eventually became scooter share and its impact and the agreements we reached with a lot of the providers. A part of their obligation under the agreements with the city to operate involved the responsible removal or containment of them. If that's not happening, one of the things we can do, obviously, as staff initially is to go back to the providers that we have agreements with to use our right-of-way and to make sure that we're enforcing that. So that would be.
No, what she was saying to me was if there's a way that we could communicate with them prior to August to see if we.
Right, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Is that to the extent that this is a situation now, at least when I listened to it, it sounded more like drawing attention to staff so we can go back and work with these groups to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do under their various agreements and not wait for a presentation is my point.
Right, absolutely.
The presentation would be helpful to kind of follow up, but if there's an emerging concern, we should be able to sort of address that first and not necessarily focus it in terms of a future agenda item, which we can still do, but we'll look into doing something about it and making sure that they're living up to their obligations currently.
Yeah. That's it. That sounds good to me. Vice Mayor, are you okay with that, or?
Yes, I am okay with that. And then just a second, I would like a presentation on the bike lanes in downtown around the lake.
Sure.
What we could do about that sooner
Sure.
than later, just because it's a dangerous situation that's been brought to my attention by several members of our community.
Just for clarification, you're talking about paths, ped paths and bike paths within the beach park and the linear park adjacent to the lake, not bike paths that are currently on like roadways like Rio Salado Parkway.
Right.
In the lake
In the
all
lake
right.
area, because we have so
that
much
probably would
activity
be
down there.
addressed to our parks, right? Parks and Recreation and our community services as well, to make sure that, how do we best manage congestion in congested parks? And there really is no more congested park in Tempe than Beach Park and our linear park around the lake, especially around events. And even on nice days, there's a lot of people using it. So how do we kind of more orderly make sure that we create, safety for pedestrians, people with mobility issues, and bicyclists as well?
Exactly.
Okay. Sounds good. We will work on that as staff, and we will put together a presentation on this subject as soon as we can. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, City Manager. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Rakiti, did you have anything, or?
Yeah, I just had something to the Vice Mayor and City Manager's discussion. There is a resident who emails me almost every time that there was a scooter found on the ground or in the way. And I get with my aide and I tell you, they contact these companies and they get that corrected almost immediately. Like they're really on top of it. So I'd definitely recommend if anyone reaches out to you just to utilize that path as well, because they'll get it fixed and the resident will be happy and it's cool. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you. Councilmember Garland?
I have two things. One is I would love it if the staff could give us a report on what it would be like to have a paid Indigenous Peoples Day, which is the second Monday of October. If we can get a presentation on that, would be great. And the other one is already on our agenda, the work study session, future agenda items. At the very end, it says future requested presentations. Number 2 is a presentation on housing affordability by Nico Howard. I attended that conference that he had a couple months ago, and it was absolutely spectacular. And I really would like to see that gets put on the schedule somewhere because it was so incredibly good. I would really like to see where we can put that.
Councilmember Garland, are you talking about having that presentation to council at a future meeting?
I think it would be
Or
really
some
helpful.
adapted version of it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it would be really helpful because there's so much information in there that would be helpful for us as council members to understand about housing affordability and what it looks like across the community. I mean, one of the things that I've mentioned at different events is talking about what affordable housing looks like to people. And one of the things that they brought up at this conference, and a number of different people mentioned it, was that if you look at affordable housing, people have in their mind that it's all Section 8, and that's not it. I gave the example, and I forgive me my son for me saying this, but so my son graduated from ASU. He went to his master's program in Switzerland, got his master's degree, came home, started working for ASU, and he qualifies for affordable housing. So I just think that was one of the things from this presentation, is that we need to change the image and the look of what that is, so that people are not having so much of the issues that we have with the NIMBYism problem. So it was a great presentation. That was just one small piece of it, but I think it would be a really great thing to do.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, depending on the length of that presentation and how it might be adapted, if it is a longer presentation, or it might be maybe more amenable for a retreat topic as opposed to work study. I don't know. I mean, it's just, I don't want to, if it's good information, it's hard necessarily to know in advance. Do you remember about how long
It was a 2-hour presentation
2
for
hours,
us,
okay.
but there was a
so-
lot of other things in there, so
Sure.
I'm sure it could be a condensed
Just a
version.
thought. I mean, if we can condense it, we're happy to reach out to Nico and his team and see what we can do. If you can do it here, great. Otherwise, just a suggestion perhaps
Yeah.
for a longer form retreat.
Absolutely, yes, Councilmember Giddy?
Didn't I already request this item, though? Like, right?
Yeah, it's on the list. I was just saying, it's on the list as number 2, but it's not attached to a date.
Oh, I see.
So I was asking if it could be
Okay.
moved up and attached to a date.
I see. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. They said they could do the presentation in 45 minutes. I thought that'd be too long for you guys. If you guys want to have a longer presentation, that's fine as well. I'm fine with the retreat as well, whatever the body thinks is best. But I do agree with you. It's very insightful. I think would be very helpful for us and our residents to hear. Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, so it sounds good. So I guess it sounds like, Mr. City Manager, you'll reach out and see whether or not you think this is, I don't want to say appropriate, but from a time standpoint, either for a future issue review session or for a future retreat topic, and I guess we'll make a determination from there.
Okay, and we'll find out about their availability and try to get it on sooner rather than later, to the point being made here right now. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And
Correct, we got that too.
Yep, perfect.
Yep, we got it. Thank you.
All right, any other council members, any future agenda items? All right, seeing none, that moves us to item number 7, announcements from the mayor and/or city manager. I don't have any announcements this evening. Mr. City Manager, any announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I have no announcements.
Thank you so much. That moves us to item number 8, which is adjournment. The next scheduled work study session is scheduled for June 8th, 2023. And with that, our meeting is adjourned at 5:56 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone.
Go Suns.